And welcome to Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com, as well as the mobile app. For those of you watching on YouTube, Lance Medow with you, riding solo for the time being. I may be joined by a co-host. Who knows? It's a little mysterious today as we move along here on BBKL. And, of course, it's presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Multiple ways you can interact with us here on the program. You give me a ring, 201-939-4513. You could also interact with us on social media using hashtag GiantsChat. I'm at Lance Medow, one word, last name, M-E-D-O-W, as we welcome you into the Giants podcast studio presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. So a lot to unpack and unravel with respect to Sunday's heartbreaker in Dallas. We'll also start to look ahead. Brian Daboll spoke to the media the other day, as well as Wan'Dale Robinson and Javon Holland. No major takeaways. Daboll said he wasn't going to update any injury news until he meets with the media on Wednesday, so there's nothing to provide from that standpoint. Clearly, the most notable development is Darius Muasau, backup linebacker who was replacing Micah McFadden, suffered a concussion, left early in the game, so he in all likelihood will be in concussion protocol entering this week's contest against the Kansas City Chiefs. I know Paul and John covered a lot in terms of their perspective from the game yesterday. I want to weigh in my thoughts in terms of what led to the 40-37 loss in overtime. And it was a back-and-forth affair, and I think it was a huge step in the right direction from an offensive standpoint with respect to the tally and, most important, the explosive plays. But one of the things that Brian Daboll emphasized on his media call the other day, and I'm a big proponent of this, and I think if you look at the difference between the opener against the Commanders versus what happened against Dallas is it's matchup-driven production. The idea that, well, the explosive plays are here this week, so therefore that is going to be an indication of signs yet to come, I wouldn't go so far. I think the Giants, and they deserve credit, took advantage of a Dallas secondary that is hammered by injuries, was down one of its best corners in Deron Bland, and clearly had miscues across the board because the bulk of the Giants' deep touchdowns, and this is not taking anything away from them, you have to capitalize and take advantages, they were running straight lines, uninhibited. No cornerback, no safeties, disrupting routes at all, and Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, straight to the end zone. Russell Wilson, we know his MO is the deep ball, and they were able to capitalize. But Kansas City doesn't have the same personnel as Dallas, nor do the Chargers. So to assume that that's going to be a staple every single week, I don't know if I would necessarily go so far. But a huge positive sign in terms of the explosiveness on offense. However, a lot of that is overshadowed by penalties, and a lot of them over the course of the game. As John Schmeelk joins me, we teased you off the top. We said it's possible there would be a co-host on this program, and we delivered on that front. But as John gets settled, one of the biggest storylines from this game is clearly the 14 penalties for 160 yards. And I made a whole list of them, and I broke it down on social media if you want to check it out. And really,
how many hours did that take
across the board? It took me quite the lengthy time to get through that, John.
Especially for both teams, because both teams had plenty of penalties.
Dallas had 12, so they weren't necessarily innocent in all of this. But at least from the Giants' perspective, which our audience is far more interested in, you had 7 on offense, 6 on defense, 1 on special teams. 9 came in the first half of the 14 that were accepted. 6 were on the opening drive. And then 5 came in the second half. And you had 3 false starts. You had 3 unnecessary roughness. You had 2 roughing the passer. You had 2 pass interference. But once again, all across the board, 4 against James Hudson, of course, on that opening drive. Drew Phillips was hit with 2. And then here's another key factor to weigh here, John. Remember, 14 go down as accepted, but they also had 3 that were declined. Carter offside, Banks illegal contact, Holland pass interference, and they had 3 on the same
that
play.
Were offset.
That were offset.
So they had 20
Correct.
penalties in the game.
By the C.D. Lamb unsportsmanlike conduct penalty.
I mentioned that yesterday. It's a lot of penalties.
So it goes to the point where I guess the box score, even though it's a high volume, I would argue doesn't necessarily tell the whole story in terms of the disruption from start to finish in the game. And hey, listen, they still scored 37 points, regardless of all of that. But, John, you and I have talked about this over the years in different contexts for all different types of games. It's about timing It's about when you're hit with these penalties, and there's also, I would argue, a cumulative effect, which may not show up in the moment, but is eventually going to take a toll sooner rather than later, whether it being favorable field positioning that you're giving up to the Cowboys, and with the way Brandon Aubrey kicks the ball, which is unlike really any other kicker we've seen, at least in recent history, you know he's hovering around that midway line. He's in field goal range. So when you commit even a 5-yard penalty, John, it easily could come back to bite you, and I think that hurt the Giants in the long run on multiple fronts.
Look, I went through the whole rigmarole on why they lost yesterday. But, yeah, look, penalties, not getting key stops when you need them, giving up explosive plays, only one takeaway in the game. So,
and they didn't capitalize off of that.
Correct. 0 points off of that, failures in the red zone. These were all issues that come up. And to your point, whenever you play a game where it goes into overtime and you lose by a field goal, every little small play can make a big difference and be the difference between a win or a loss. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and that, unfortunately, is the fine line that really every NFL team walks. You look at 95% of games are decided by 7 points or less. So the Giants are not necessarily an exception to that rule, but this was a positive development, John, from an offensive standpoint. And you figure, I think if you go through any game, you say your offense is going to score 37 points. I think you like your chances to, A, be in the game, and B, walk away with a victory. But NFC East games are cut from a very different cloth. As we know that, there's been, even though the Cowboys have dominated this series as of late, there also have been a number of close games that have come down to the wire with a field goal here or a first down there. And both teams have been on opposite sides of that spectrum. But you can't afford in crunch time to make those mental mistakes. And the interception, unfortunately, gave the Cowboys extreme favorable field positioning. All they had to do was get a Dak Prescott run to set Brandon Aubrey up for the win. And, even if you go back, John, and you look at the other possessions, and I was listening to Brian Schottenheimer's press conference yesterday when he looked at the film, and he said, it is extremely unusual for both teams to combine. Think about this. They had 5 possessions in overtime in that game on Sunday. That's unheard of. They each exchanged 2 possessions, and then Dallas got the third and ultimately got into field goal range. But, let's not overlook the fact that New York had 2 possessions, and unfortunately Russell Wilson lost grasp of the football, and boy, that play could have been far worse than it turned out to be. I mean, kudos to Cam Scadaboo for chasing after that ball to not giving Dallas an opportunity to recover it. That put them behind the 8 ball. And here's the cumulative effect, once again, of the penalties. They show up in the first quarter. If you don't all of a sudden put an end to it, they're going to hover around in the third quarter. And then when overtime comes into play and so forth. And all of these little things. I mean, there's a lot of people that are going to point to the interception that made or broke this game. I would argue there's 17 other things that we could put under the microscope as to why the Giants were on the wrong end of this. And it hurts even more because now they're 0-2 in the division. And John, as we talked about, the schedule doesn't get any easier with the Chiefs and the Chargers on the horizon. And there's a Kansas City team in a bit of uncharted territory at 0-2. Not to say that if they were 1-1, they were going to treat this game any differently, but I think the approach for the Chiefs in prime time is, hey, we're coming on the road. We lost 2 close games. We know that we need to right the ship or else we're going to put ourselves in a precarious spot in a much more challenging division. So as if this game wasn't tough enough on paper, now all of a sudden, John, you welcome in Andy Reid's club that is foaming at the mouth because they know they were there so close in their first 2 games.
Yeah, and look, now you got 2 teams that are desperate, right? You start 0-2, you got, I think, at a 12% chance, give or take, of making the postseason. You go to 0-3, it becomes you need to break out the decimal points to find the percent chance you have of making the postseason. So it gets small. And both teams are going to be desperate. The thing about the Chiefs, Lance, is that right now they do not have the offense to run away from people. Even last year when they won 15 games, they played an extraordinarily amount of close games.
Yep.
So that's a game where you're playing a team like the Chiefs. If you make the smallest mistake or give them the biggest opening, they will take, or give them the smallest opening, they will take advantage of it. And even though it might not be like, Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill from 5 years ago for an 80-yard touchdown catch, They will figure out a way to make you pay, and for the most part, it has not happened so far this year. If it's a close game, there's a good chance Patrick Mahomes is going to figure out a way to win it. So you have to play clean football. You're going against a really good defensive coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo.
Yep.
This is the stuff that has to be cleaned up if you want to go out there and win football games against good football teams. And we said that at the start of the year, right? This schedule was very hard. If the Giants were going to succeed, they would have to win close games. And to win close games, you have to take advantage of the opportunities. We talked about the red zone opportunities, not taking advantage of the takeaway, things like that. Cowboys were 3 of 3 in the red zone. They did not keep them out of the end zone in this game for the most part. So those are you don't have to play perfect football, but you have to play good, solid, close to mistake-free football. And 14 penalties for 160 yards, 1 for 3 and 1 for 5?
1 for 5,
5 in the red zone,
and
right?
1 for 7 now on the season, by the way.
You can't have that. And they haven't won the turnover battle in either one of the first 2 games either. They haven't lost it, to their credit.
But they've been even.
Yeah. Those are the types of things that swing games. And if you want to go out there and beat a Chiefs team, Patrick Mahomes has never started 0-2 before. He has never lost 3 straight games before. He has done that now, dating back to the Super Bowl last year, if you want to go from season to season, if you want to count that. This would be a 4th straight loss for him. That's not what the Chiefs do. So you're going to have to come out and play a great game on Sunday to win. A great game. Not just a good game, not just an okay game. You need all 3 phases for your team to go out there and play high-level football if you want to beat Patrick Mahomes. Let's see if they can do it.
One of the things I was talking about, John, before you came in, and I think this is a fair conversation here in the wake of the loss to the Cowboys, and Brian Dable touched on this a little bit, but the old cliche, and I know a lot of people are tired of hearing about it, is it's a week-to-week league. But there is an extreme amount of validity behind it because you're going to go up against different defenses. I'm glad you brought up Spags. Spags, as Giants fans know, has a tremendous track record and is very crafty. And even though their offense, Kansas City, is in a sort of feel-it-out process, their defense still has done a really nice job against the opposition.
Excellent
right?
unit. Yep.
Okay? Mm-hmm. They could get pressure. They could bottle you up. And they could even keep a team like the Eagles on their toes. So you can't go into that Chiefs game thinking Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson are going to run straight lines beyond the Chiefs secondary. And I think that Chiefs defense is far more beneficial from continuity, okay, because they've been together much more so than some of the Dallas personnel.
For sure.
And I just think they're a better textbook overall defense because Spags, once again, has been pressing the buttons for the last few years. Matt Eberflus is brand new. So you talked about not making the mental mistakes. You talked about finding a way to win the close game, play that near perfect contest. But you also can't roll over and say, well, the Giants are going to be toying with 30-some-odd points against Kansas City. And if you lower, John, the point tally, then that margin for error.
It's smaller.
Right? That we were just talking about.
Correct.
Forget smaller. I mean, you get to the point where it's a minute amount is what I like to refer to.
And again, I'll do this more with Casillas on Thursday, and I haven't looked at any of the advanced numbers yet or anything, but I know enough about Steve Spagnuolo to know how he approaches these games. And I'll have to look to see how he did against Russell Wilson in his 4 games when he was in Denver, when he played the AFC West those 2 years. I have not gone back and looked at it yet. But here's what I know about Steve Spagnuolo. He is going to pressure the quarterback. If he can't get there with 4, he's going to bring 5. If he can't get there with 5, he's going to bring 6. If he can't come there with 6, he's going to bring 7. That's what he does. He will blitz 0 you. And I think what helped set Russell Wilson up for success against the Dallas Cowboys last week is Matt Eberflus does not blitz. I think he had 6 or 7 blitzes in the entire game and 45 dropbacks for Russell Wilson, whatever it was. And that allowed him, without the Cowboys having a dominant pass rusher because of the trade of Micah Parsons, to sit back there and be pretty comfortable in the pocket. The Giants' offensive line did a great job blocking Dallas's 4 rushers for most of the game. But on the one Russell Wilson interception, what happened on that play? He got pressured.
Yep.
His left tackle, Marcus Bull, kind of got pushed into his lap, and he threw off his back foot. Ball got intercepted, right?
Wilson on Wilson, by the way.
Wilson on Wilson violence.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct. After Wilson, the other Wilson did a lot of violence to Donovan Wilson earlier in the game, throwing balls over his head. Correct.
Yeah.
So now, can Russell Wilson, and we talked about this in the offseason, Lance, I gave you the numbers when we were on the show together. He was a different quarterback, kept clean, versus under pressure last year. Look, it's different for all quarterbacks. For him, it was really, really, really divergent in terms of the type of quarterback he was when pressured versus kept clean. We're talking top 10 clean, bottom 3 pressured. That's how big the difference was. Can he and the Giants offense repeat that performance when he gets pressured? Now, if you have to force the Chiefs to send a lot of extra guys in blitz when he's pressured, that'll give you the advantage because then you have single coverage outside. Malik Neighbors, you're going to trust to get the ball to him one-on-one against anybody. Even though the Chiefs have some good corners, Trent McDuffie's a really good player, you're going to trust Malik Neighbors to win those matchups. But can Russell Wilson execute that? And I think that, to me, is the biggest challenge this week. When the Chiefs bring their blitz packages, and trust me, they're going to bring them, can the Giants' passing game function the way it did against Dallas, who failed? You look at Dallas' pressure numbers in the game, they were okay. Like, overall, I think they're over 35%. You watch that game, you didn't feel pressure from Dallas.
It was not overwhelming at all. Yeah.
I'm starting to be a little leery of some of these analytics websites and their pressure numbers because I feel like they were more accurate 2 or 3 years ago. Different sites use different metrics on it. But you watch that game, and you just don't have a feel that the Cowboys were really in the backfield bothering Russell Wilson much. Well, guess what? Chiefs are going to bother him this week. And we'll see if that Giant passing game, with that pressure, with those blitzes, is going to be as effective.
I just did a quick review.
Let me see.
20 sacks for the Chiefs in the 4 Russell Wilson starts.
That's what I'm talking about.
Over those 2
And I didn't even look it up.
Yeah, of 22 and 23.
And Russ started all 4 of those games?
He did.
He did? Okay.
Yep, he started all 4. Now,
remember,
he
didn't start at the end of the second
Correct,
year.
but it was early enough. We're talking about they met the Chiefs twice in the span of 3 weeks in that second year. So he got them early in the season, week 6 and week 8. And they won the last matchup 24-9. But you're talking about he's been sacked 4 or 6 times in each of the 4 starts.
Yeah, Russ in that game,
1 year, 10 the other year.
Just 12 of 19, was that 124?
114.
114, sorry.
Yeah, and they won that game.
And 6 sacks.
Yep. That was the most recent start.
How they scored 24 points in that game?
My guess is they either got a defensive takeaway or the run game was clicking. I'm bringing it up right now.
The Broncos didn't exactly have a great run game that year.
Let's see.
Scroll down. Let me look at the total numbers. What do we got here in that game? Keep going down. It'll pop up. There we go. What do we have on the run game for the Broncos in that game? It's 27 for 85.
That was Javonte Williams.
There had to have been takeaways in that game because based on my cursory math here, 115, 144. The Broncos had about 255 yards of offense in that game, so I'm not exactly sure how they got to 24 points.
Let's see, turnovers. Kansas City turned it over 5 times.
Oh, well, that's
your answer.
That'll do
it. Yeah, so.
That'll
Quick
do
math, yeah. And that would explain why they held the Chiefs to only 9 points. So, and a short field that I'm sure set up a few touchdowns. Because I'm looking at Russell Wilson, he had 3 touchdown passes from 4, 11, and 6 yards. Yeah. So they didn't really have to march down the field.
I don't want to get too much into that game, but to me, just very early on the cursory look at those two, the Giants and the Chiefs, that would be the thing that would concern me the most if I'm a Giants fan heading into that game.
Well, and I think it's relevant before we open up the lines. And the one thing that I guess maybe bothered is too strong of a word, but when Brian Daboll was speaking to the media, a lot of the reporters, John, if you notice, they were pressing him about, well, what you saw in the Dallas game, what makes you think that it's going to continue or what signs? And he kept answering, and I'm sure to many he was providing a boring answer, but I actually looked at it as it's the only sensible answer, and that is you really can't take much away because they're going to be attacking a completely different defense the following week. So they took advantage of a Dallas secondary that clearly was not on the same page, and that's what the NFL's about. But to assume that the big bombs are going to come the following week and then the Chargers are going to pose a completely different challenge, as we saw last night, what they did to Geno Smith, and they completely shut down that Raiders offense. So saying, well, it happens against Dallas, it's going to happen again the following week, I just don't think that there's enough of an indication. So it's more of a reason why the Giants, like they headed into the season thinking, you're going to have a pathway that is versatile in terms of how you attack certain teams and how you plan on winning, because the Dallas game plan, I think, is more of an outlier than more of a norm, at least when it comes to 2025. All right, let's open up the phone lines as we move forward here on Tuesday's edition of BBKL. Lance Medow, John Schmeelk with you here, and it is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. And we start off the festivities with Kevin in North Carolina. Kevin, welcome aboard. What do you got for us?
Hey, guys, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Yep.
Do you hear us?
Yeah, Kevin, you hear us? Yeah, what's on your mind?
Points about the game, and I just had a question for you guys. So just a couple points I wanted to make. I wanted to talk about that drive where the Cowboys took the lead with that George Pickens touchdown before we scored with Neighbors at the end of the game. We were at a 4th and 5, or actually it was a 4th and 3. We couldn't get off the field right there. There was another point early in the game, 4th and 5. We couldn't get off the field. There was a run where Javonte, I believe it was 2nd and 29. And we give up about a 21-yard run to Javonte Williams right there. Missed tackles. Even that touchdown he had, that 30-yard touchdown. We had multiple broken tackles. I think Deontay Banks got to take a weird angle. Couldn't get him. Had another arm broken tackle. He just ran it 30 yards to the end zone. So, again, I think just very bad execution right there in terms of tackling and lack of awareness, especially with those penalties that you guys have mentioned. As well as I think the biggest turning point in this game was when we get the turnover, that Drew Phillips interception. We go for it on 4th and 2. Scadaboo drops the ball.
It was a Scadaboo drop. That was absolutely the turning point. I agree with you. Scadaboo should have caught the ball. My initial reaction was to kick the field goal there, but I can't really get on Brian Dable when he calls a play that gets you the first down if your player just catches the football. So the play was set up. It worked. He should have caught it. And, we look back and you see how many points were scored in the game. And, yeah, it's easy to say, well, if you look back and you had 3 points to the Giants' point total, it might be different. But, the Cowboys are maybe calling timeouts on that final Giants drive. They're going to play that a whole lot differently at the end of the game if the score's a little bit different. But, again, knowing that you had 41 points scored in the fourth quarter of this game, which is just a ridiculous number, I get why you would want to have the 7 there instead of just settling for 3.
Well, the entire approach changes if we go down this hypothetical road. That's why the math is not so simple in the NFL. But the other reason why I would agree that I think it was a major turning point in the game is you also go back to Dallas had the final possession of the first half.
Right.
And because of bad clock management, they didn't have a chance to send Aubrey out there, which in all likelihood would have been clearly a legitimate field goal for him. And once again, we can play basic math. It doesn't mean Dallas wins in regulation. The whole point is they could have very well had a chance to double dip, John, is what I'm getting at, right? You give them points at the end of the second quarter, then they know they're getting possession back to start the third. So they didn't get points at the end of the second. You took away a possession to start the half, and then what happened? You walk away with no points, and then they wind up responding with a 6-play, 90-yard drive. So just in terms of the flow of the game, it was almost as if, to use the famous Denny Green quote when he was the Cardinals head coach, we let the Cowboys off the hook. And that's exactly what happened, I think, from the end of the second quarter to the early mid stages of the third.
Yeah, definitely. And I just wanted to make one more quick point.
Sure.
And then a quick question. I'll take it off the air. And then look at that last drive right there before it goes to overtime. And, I'm sitting there watching the game with my dad, and, I'm seeing the position that Okereke and Belton are in, and I'm just wondering to myself, why are we giving them that much cushion and space to just throw the ball down the field, hit Ferguson right there when we know dang well they have the best kicker in the league. I just don't understand why we were just playing so soft, coverage right there and not, just being more aligned with tightened spaces to not give up, a 20-yard pass down the field. Let it come underneath, make the tackle, walk away with the victory. And then my question that I had was, I think Marcus Bowe played, really well this past game. And, if Andrew Thomas isn't ready, even if he is ready, but they kind of, iffy with him, not 100%, would you, sit him another extra couple games because Bowe played well, or would you want him out there if he's ready to go, but not even 100%, like let's say if he's 80 or 90?
No, all right, Kevin. Appreciate the phone call.
Kevin, good questions. Look, I would treat Andrew Thomas the same way I did before. You bring him back when he's ready. When you have a guy coming back from that series of an injury, Lance, that, they signed him to a big contract. They want him here long-term to be their all-pro left tackle, Pro Bowl left tackle. You bring him back when you're confident he's good to go and can recover well from these games so you can have him every week. And whether Bowe plays well or somebody else doesn't play well, I think that's what you have to do when you're in this situation. So I don't change my strategy on that. I do think Bo would start next week if they need him, and that's the punishment to James Hudson, never give the young guy a chance to play, right? And that's what he did, the old Wally Pipp situation.
Sure.
So that's kind of how I look at it here. And then on the other side, it was bad defense on that play. I don't know if it's execution or that's what I doubt that's what Shane Bowen told them to do, to drop back all those yards and give up a field goal. But yeah, the defense on that play has to be better.
It certainly has. I mean, on the flip side, I thought Dak made a really great throw between, at least, it may have not been tight, but there were 3 defenders in the vicinity in which Ferguson secured that. And we know, going back, listen, when Jason Witten was running routes, okay, for the Cowboys, they ran a similar one. There was actually a game, and this is not to pour salt in the wounds of Giants fans, when Jason Witten caught a game-winning touchdown. John, if you remember at the end of one of the games, I forget which year it was. So, that's a signature Dallas Cowboy play. Whether it is Mike McCarthy, Jason Garrett, Brian Schottenheimer, you name it, Tony Romo, Dak Prescott, they lean heavily on the tight end over the middle of the field because of the size and the role they play within the offense. So, I mean, I look at that as, I think you could say, hey, tighter coverage, but at the same time, that was a well-executed play from an offensive standpoint. And let's face it, Brandon Aubrey, he probably was going to make that field goal from 70 yards out. If you look, that had a few more yards in which it went over the crossbar. I mean, that's just the type of leg that this guy has. Doesn't mean you don't want to make it easier on him, okay? You want to make it more challenging, but if you watch the landing spot of that kick, even if Ferguson caught the ball 3 or 4 yards, a little bit further up the field, closer to Dak, I don't know in the long run if it really would have made or break the outcome of that game. Let's head back to the phone lines. We got another Kevin, Coach Kevin in Arizona with us. What's happening, Coach Kevin?
Hey, guys, great show. And by the way, the previous Kevin that just called, I agree with him on the last, the end of the game there with the soft coverage. What I would have done, I would have brought my corners up to jam, because you want to force Dak to throw the ball deep. It's going to take more time. That would have given our pass rushers a few extra seconds to get to Dak, because he would have been forced to go throw the ball deep. If we just jam those receivers on the outside and bring those safeties up just a little tighter and leave the linebackers where they were, but force him to make a deep throw, because he's more dangerous throwing those cuts across the field than he is on the real deep balls. So I would have forced him just for time, just to give the defense, because they were gassed, the front seven.
Kevin,
give them that extra time. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I think the frustrating part for me is that the players all talked after the game, and I know Brian Dable drilled this into them during the week, and so did Shane Bowen. They said their mark on the field was the 50-yard line. Like, they knew that's where Aubrey was in range to kick. So I don't care what the call is. You have to play to not allow them to get to the 50-yard line. Like, that's what you have to do in that situation. So I know they were coached up on that, on where the mark was for the kicker. They said so after the game. Again, whether they press, to your point, I think if you just play the same coverage, but if everyone 10 or 15 yards closer to the line of scrimmage, I think that's fine too. But
I agree.
For some reason, they were just really, really soft, and I don't have a good reason as to why.
The other thing, Kevin, to keep in mind is, you were talking about applying pressure. I would say that happened actually in overtime. And granted, this was a different scenario because they weren't necessarily as much up against the clock, and it was a completely different yardage. But then Dak, remember, ran up the gut for a 14-yard gain, and he's got the mobility this year, much more so. If this was last season...
I think you're fine with Dak running him there, though, because the play takes a lot more time than
I agree.
I think you're fine with Dak running it there.
I'm just saying that you got to be careful, because he has shown the capacity where if all of a sudden you get too deep in your pass rush, he's got the open field, he will take off.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I wanted to add one more thing on a positive note. I was very impressed with this whole game, with the Giants' turnaround. So I'm going to give them credit. I know people have been very, very upset, but I got to say, and watching the game and breaking down the offensive line, and one thing I will stress is, we know the Scadaboo is a gap runner primarily, and I would like to see more, especially against Kansas City, because Kansas City is a high-pressure edge rush type of team, right? They're trappable. You can trap these guys. Let them take themselves out of the play. You do a deep drop back with Russ against them, he's going to get sacked, just like you said earlier in the other games. You got to play up tight, and you got to use the trap and trap those guys coming. When they come, let them come. Pull the guard from the other side and kick him out. Run counters with the inside game. On the outside game, that's where you bring Tracy in and the other backs to run the zone runs. You run your zone runs with the speed guys, but on the inside stuff, the gut stuff, you run gap, and you run traps. And you trap these guys, so the more that they keep charging up there against our offensive line, let them come. Kick them out, and then let Scout just go right up behind that kick-out block. And he will make a ton. This is exactly what he did at Arizona State, and that's the same thing. This is how you beat Spags. You beat him on his aggression.
No, Kevin.
Against him.
No, Kevin, I don't disagree. They tried to run a bunch of traps in the beginning of the game against the Commanders in Week 1, and they did not execute them well. Granted, they did not really execute much well on the offensive line in Week 1 against the Commanders, but
Right.
They did try that, and yeah, I'm all for that. I think the Giants this year, the run they still run the most is the duo run. I think that's what they feel best about when you have the two double teams and you can't let the running back pick the hole. But yeah, it would not surprise me. They have every run in their bag. They practice all of them. So yeah, I would not be shocked to see a couple traps early. Maybe some screens too, right? If you catch them in a blitz or two, you can catch them on a screen pass.
Screens to the flats also. Let them guys penetrate and have Russ just flip it out to the flats. Exactly. That was my next comment.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, I think, seems more practical. I appreciate the phone call, Kevin, especially
Good stuff, Kevin. Good call.
since
Thank you.
You had the first two teams that went up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I was just looking over their numbers. They did a pretty good job. I mean, Saquon, I'm looking at his numbers. He had 2 catches for 6 yards. So they didn't allow him to be as dangerous from a receiving standpoint. And then they played the Chargers, remember, in Brazil. And actually, that was more of the Justin Herbert show. I was actually surprised they didn't run the ball as much. It was all receivers. Hampton had 2 catches for 13 yards. So neither one of those opponents for the Chiefs utilized their running backs, as the last caller was pointing out, as receiving threats. And I think both teams have players that could catch the ball out of the backfield. The Giants have the personnel too. It'll be interesting to see whether or not perhaps New York would attack that way and have more success. And also just from a running standpoint, maybe I wouldn't put so much stock in the Chargers because I think a big part of the game plan was we're going to attack Kansas City through the air. But when you look at Philadelphia on the ground, 34 carries, 122 yards, but under 4 yards per carry, which to me is far more important than the volume of the runs and how much yardage they had. Let's head back to the phone lines. We got Edgar in Arizona with us. Edgar, welcome aboard. What do you got for
Edgar,
us?
what's up?
Edgar going once.
Edgar's a great name, too.
Edgar going twice.
Edgar Martinez, excellent player.
Edgar, check swing. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go.
I don't know.
He foul-tipped the last check swing.
Boy,
he foul-tipped the last check swing.
All right, we'll allow it. We'll allow it. It's early in the season, so we're still getting our act together.
Edgar, what's up, Ed?
I appreciate it, guys. Hey, John, I called a few weeks ago, and I had said that I was interested in maybe moving Bo at right guard, and when Thomas came back, and you guys said he wasn't ready. I'm lucky enough that I'm old enough that I've seen all 4 Super Bowl champions of the Giants from '86. And one thing that all those teams have in common is they can run the ball. This team gets no push in the middle of the line. I know we can't get a free agent or a stud. We got to deal with what we have. I still like the idea of putting Neal and Luminor at the guards and put Bo at right tackle when Thomas comes back. What do you guys think about that?
Well, Edgar, it's funny. I had this conversation off the air with somebody here. Nobody upstairs, someone down here in our production department, so I don't think it's anyone important. And I posited, let's say Andrew Thomas misses 2 more weeks, right? Again, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but let's say he does. And let's say Bo plays well in those games, and he looks very good. Do you at some point consider, and you will not find a bigger Jermaine Illuminor fan than I am. I think he's fantastic. I think he's having a great year at right tackle. For all the Giants' offensive line issues, he has nothing to do with them.
Right.
He has experience playing guard. Would you consider moving Bo to right tackle, where he practiced a ton in the offseason, and then, shifting around however you want to shift around the guard center spot? And I would think about it. I don't think you could put Bo at guard just because he didn't work there much in the summer, and I don't want to position switch a rookie. I don't think that's fair to the rookie. You want to keep him where he's been practicing most of the time. So I have thought about that.
Right tackle's the spot for him.
Yeah.
Right tackle's the spot for him.
So I have thought about that, Edgar. I think it's a good question. I think it depends. I wouldn't go there now. I think it depends how the next 2 weeks go. Keep in mind, Evan Neal the first 2 weeks has been inactive.
Yeah.
So he's behind Aaron Stinney on the depth chart, so I don't think that part of your plan would necessarily happen. But I think if Bo plays really, really well, the whole goal is to get your best 5 offensive linemen on the field, right, in one way, shape, or form. Do you then make an adjustment to try to get your best 5 on the field? But then again, Edgar, maybe the next 2 weeks, your guards and center play really well too, and then you don't want to make that change. So I think you kind of have to see, Lance, how these next couple weeks go.
Yeah, and Edgar, listen, we'll let you go on that note, getting some background noise from you, but appreciate the phone call.
Yeah, good question, Edgar.
The problem that I have with this game plan is twofold. Number one, I never got the sense this offseason, just listening to Dable and Carmen Brasillo, that they want to take guys out of positions where they maybe excel. And I think Illuminor is comfortable where he is. And
he has said, by the way, the reason he's playing so well is because it's the first offseason he hasn't had to train in multiple positions.
Exactly. Bingo. And I think sometimes when you start to think about, well, we want to get our 5 best guys on the field, to your point, John, you're actually hurting yourself more because you're then moving guys where they're comfortable into other spots where they're not nearly going to be as effective.
No, Lance, it's a good point. That's why I don't think it's an easy answer.
So that's why right now I would say even if some struggles continue, I think there could be some hesitancy. You took the words out of my mouth. I think anyone speculating about Evan Neal, all you need to look at is the fact that he's been a healthy scratch. And when players are healthy scratch, I think you at least get an idea of where their current status is in the eyes of the rest of the roster. Now, guys can make leaps. It's possible. But I wouldn't necessarily brace for that to happen overnight.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about the depth chart on the website. I would look at who's inactive on game days.
Without a doubt, because that makes the ultimate statement. And let's put it this way. After the way the Giants' offensive line, John, performed in week 1, you could argue it would have been easy for the coaching staff to go into a room and say, okay, what do we do to revamp this whole thing? And Evan Neal, who is now transitioning back to guard, wouldn't that have been an attractive, sensible plan to at least maybe consider moving him in? And they didn't go there.
Now again, and if we get to the point where after another week or two, like it looks more like week 1 than it does in week 2, and Russell Wilson is getting the what beat out of him, and you feel like you have to make a big change in order to make the unit functional, then we can have that conversation. But to Lance's point, Edgar, I'm not there right now. So if Andrew Thomas plays this week, I'm not probably even considering the type of changes you're talking about. Based off of a relatively small sample size with Marcus Bowe, I don't think you make that move then. I think you need to see how it plays out. But like if Thomas is back this week, I think you're going to see the same 5 guys out there that you saw at the start of last year.
And the other thing related to this, John, is...
And you should, by the way, I think, too.
I don't know how much I'd want to move Bowe around so early in his career, too.
Right. I mean, the good thing is that he has been mostly a right tackle in the offseason. So that's where he has played most of his snaps. So if anything, left tackle was more of a position change for him. But that was obviously something out of need because of what happened with James Hudson.
Exactly. In the midst of a game, you have to prepare for that. But I would think going into a week, I guess, is what I'm saying. You'd want to pencil him in and say, hey, gain chemistry next to the guy that you're going to take the bulk of the snaps against. And that's my hesitancy about Illuminor. As good as Illuminor may be at right tackle, you move to right guard. Okay, now he's got to get used to playing next to the center, and the center, vice versa. So John Michael Schmitz now and Illuminor have to make sure they're on the same page when they have not played next to one another leading up to this point.
Unless part of the move is, does Van Roten go to center? Again, I don't know what that switch around would look like, but again, I think it's way too early to have those types of conversations.
And the more and more we're going down this hypothetical road, we've now moved at least 3 different offensive lines.
Yes, that's a good point. It's a good point. It's a good point.
I mean, how many more maneuvers do you have up your sleeve?
I know nobody likes a game of musical chairs on the offensive line more than Lance Medow.
Listen, it's well documented based on history for the Giants.
It is your favorite party game. It's your favorite party game.
It is my favorite party game. No doubt about it. Yes. I would be in heaven if just had a birthday party where all we did was play musical chairs. And I can't say that I have a lot of childhood experiences in that department, so I'm not speaking from experience.
What was the party game you probably played the most as a kid? Mine was probably Pin the Tail on the Donkey.
Yes, Pin the Tail on the Donkey was certainly a favorite. Simon Says.
Okay, Simon Says is a good one.
Probably in the mix too.
Red Light, Green Light?
Yes, Red Light, Green Light. Is that the Red Rover one?
No. Red Rover is when you all
line
hold
up
the
and you
hands.
break through. Okay.
Yes, correct.
So that's
Red
different
Rover.
than the lights.
Now,
it's been a while.
When you do Red Rover,
you know.
would you try to go under and be sneaky?
No, I use my power flex. And
how'd that
I was
work out
North
for
and
you?
South runner. Well, I mean, we're talking about, colleagues or, fellow little individuals.
Second grade colleagues.
Yeah, we were very
Lance
formal.
Meadow.
We had a very formal birthday party. I refer to them as colleagues. Yes. So, no, I tried to go through. There was no cheating or... it wasn't as if I had giant friends that we're talking about.
One thing I never did, and I never really wanted to do it either, but I know it's like a big thing, I guess, some Halloween things, bobbing for apples. That was never something that seemed... I never really wanted to, stick my face in a big bucket of water that other people were also sticking their face in.
Correct.
I also felt like it would be kind of hard to bite into the apple. Like, that's the whole point, right? You're supposed to bite into the apple, and that's how you bob it out. Or you're trying to get the stem and pick it up by the stem.
Yeah, which actually, the more and more you think about it, it's a brutal game for little kids to play when their teeth are falling out. The baby teeth, right? Right? Think about that. Why go through that? That's punishment. A 3-year-old playing that game, can you imagine?
Saves you a dentist appointment.
It could, true. And it maybe gets you to put something under the pillow to get a visit from the tooth fairy.
No, I love teasing my daughter whenever she gets a Bluetooth. I'm like, I can just tie a string to it and just tie it to the doorknob and slam the door shut.
Yeah,
I can go old school on you here if you want.
100%.
She does not like
she
that.
takes the patient route, meaning
she's not
meshes
patient
with it. She meshes. Okay, meshes.
Yeah, she has been. We're one of her side front teeth. I don't know if it's incisor or whatever it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
She's been shaking it around the last week, like waiting for it to come out.
Sure.
The problem I've run into, and she doesn't listen to the show, so I can say it. I'm very much against like the over gifting on like the tooth fairy stuff.
Oh, so you have a budget and a limit.
Yeah, so
is what you place on it.
By the way, parents, if you're in the car now with a young child, I suggest you do earmuffs or you turn it off and wait for them to be out of the car. First, I will say that as someone with a little child. So
Wait a minute, the tooth fairy's not real?
Give them a second to mute it? I was trying to give them a second to mute it, lads.
What a disappointment.
You are such a bah humbug.
Yes, I love that role. But please, no. Now I'm at the edge of my seat, so finish your thought. Yeah.
Unfortunately, the last couple of times, I haven't had any singles, so I've had to do like $5 a tooth.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm not a
Big
fan
spender.
of.
See?
But I don't have any singles. All I've had is 5s, and you can't wait. Because then the kid freaks out, the tooth fairy forgot me. And it's a problem.
You should give maybe a piece of paper where it has a digital transaction fee that you'll process at a later date.
Or like
if
crypto.
You don't have cash on you.
You want crypto by the tooth fairy? Tooth fairy's giving out cryptocurrency now?
Boy, what world are we living in if we're going down that road? And whether or not actually it holds up in value maybe 2 or 3 days after the fact.
Boy, that is a slide that we slid out right there.
No, these are real problems. These are real problems, real world problems. See, you think you're stressing out over Giants football? People, John doesn't have enough cash to put under the pillow for a kid.
No, I have too much cash. I don't have the small
but there are a lot of
dominations.
people also in this day and age, in fairness, that don't deal in cash, right?
Well, that is true.
Cash is almost a lost commodity. Oh, you're whipping it out here?
No, I'm checking.
On the show?
If the
gonna have to have security around you.
If the tooth comes out tonight, I have 2 singles, so that'll be what's going under the pillow. But the problem is I only have 2 singles and a 10. So if I use the 2 singles, then I only have the 10. Then I got to give her 10.
Well, you could ask for change back the following morning.
Yeah, that is not going to play.
Wait,
Lance
hold on.
Meadow.
What about change? What about change? Have you looked at that? Just give her a bucket of pennies, and then it teaches the
Lance,
kids.
You have to squeeze it under the pillow. You can't squeeze a sack of pennies under the pillow.
Hold on. The pillow's big enough that if you had to put 100 pennies under the pillow, it would be time.
You realize she is sleeping under the pillow as this is happening, correct?
All right, so then I would suggest using quarters then. Okay, bigger coins and less to equate to $1. See, you're not thinking this.
I don't have a bunch.
I also don't have a lot of me. I would make this problem go away.
I also don't have a lot of quarters laying around either.
Well,
everything's done digitally now. It's a problem.
Which is what I was just explaining over the last 5 minutes. But if you plan accordingly, when you have a kid who has a loose tooth, you go to the bank in advance and you make sure you have the proper coinage and paper.
You want me to print out the Venmo QR code? Put it underneath, slide it in.
In the long run, you're teaching these children things that are not taught, at least when we were in the public school system. I think, listen, how to balance a checking book. These are important things. See, you don't know what you learn here on BBKL. Right. But as we try to return to normally scheduled programming to a certain degree, let's check in with Jason in New Haven here on BBKL. What's happening, Jason?
What's up, Jason?
Hey, Lance and Paul, how you guys doing? Oh, John.
Yeah, that's
Lance.
okay.
Excuse me.
I was
How you
almost
guys
very
doing?
insulted
Yeah,
there
I was
for a
going to
second,
say.
Jason. That's okay.
I'm sure he's been called worse, but it's okay.
Not much.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Maybe Lance
I'm
once or
sorry.
Well,
twice.
I have
That's it.
definitely been called worse, yes.
No, I mean, people have called me Lance, so I think
okay.
that's a bit of a problem, too.
I apologize.
Nah, you're good, dude. What do you got? What do you got?
Hey, much, man. I'll make 3 points, and then I'll move on. I'll make the Kansas City point. I'll, take it off the air.
Sure.
Needless to say, Sunday to me was very disappointing. From the, I don't know what that was with Hudson in that first series, but to me, he shouldn't see the field at all. Period. End of story. That to me was just egregious. So I'll leave that at that. My two issues I had with the game, and while our offense did wake up, I know Dallas had some corners missing, some young secondary players, but you have to take advantage, and we did. But I guess my question is I think you had a previous caller or 2 callers ago. To me, and I get it, fellas, these guys are professional play callers, coaches. They've been coaching for years. I get it, but as a fan, I do have a right to ask. I just don't see. I don't get and I know, the linebackers didn't play it well. Whatever the call was, they didn't play it well. I get that. But, man, to give Dak that much time to throw the ball into the middle of the field when I think it was a young gentleman from Arizona, he's really good throwing the ball in the middle, attacking the middle of the field against the defense. And to see that much cushion, man, on that Ferguson catch was it was very demoralizing to me because
No, of course it is. It was a bad play. It was a badly executed play.
But my thing, John, is I get the play that they didn't execute the play. My question is the play call. And like I said,
No,
I'm
but
not
Jason,
asking
you don't know what the play call
Yeah.
is.
That's the problem.
But my thing is this. We lose to the Cowboys. Sometimes you have to take a game. And I just feel like in that situation, you pressured that. That's just my opinion.
No, but Jason,
right?
isn't the
That's just
whole
my
point?
opinion.
No, but Jason, isn't the whole point of bringing in all these pass rushers that you don't have to blitz?
Yeah, you should be able to win with
Yeah,
your front four.
I get that, John. I get that. But at the end of the day, forget all the hype and all that. We're trying to win a game here. So if you have to bring 5, you bring 5. Like you said a minute ago, Spagnuolo has Chris Jones. They have Karlaftis. They have some pretty good pass rushers. But he still brings 5 and 6 guys.
Jason, I get it. What happens if you blitz, you're manning up one of those big-time wide receivers with one of your cornerbacks? How did those matchups go over the course of the game when you were manned up with one of your cornerbacks and Pickens and CeeDee Lamb?
Right. And that's absolutely true. Anything can happen. But that soft zone was just a mess. Secondly, and I'm moving to Kansas, that last pick, I'm not going to really kill Russell on that. Like you guys stated, Bo was pushed back, and he rushed the throw. He threw it up, kind of like a punt. And, be that as it may.
And Jason, after the game, they called it a miscommunication. They wouldn't get into details as to what it was. Yeah. So I just in terms of why, I don't know. But anyway, finish your point.
Right. My question would be, and I'm not actually, everybody's, opinion is different, but man, I don't know why we were going for broke at that point in overtime when if we score a field goal, the game is over. I just don't understand some of the, and I guess I will never know because I'm not in those meetings, I'm not in the offices to even get a hear or feel for what was going on, but I just didn't feel like going for broke when we have Gano, who isn't, the Dallas kicker, but he's pretty good when healthy. I just didn't see the go for broke mentality. So and then in my next thing, Kansas City. I'll get
final point.
Go ahead.
No. I said final point. Finish up.
Yeah.
We got to roll.
Yep. The Kansas City, the other caller talked about how much they pressure. I would love to see a lot more screens. We ran it in the preseason a lot. We got to use their aggression against them. So thanks for taking my call, fellas.
No, thank you, Jason.
Yep,
hey,
appreciate
look,
the
Russell
phone call.
Wilson didn't have to throw the deep ball. It's not like on that play that's the only option. That was his choice. And it worked for most of the game, so I can't get too mad about it. And the Cowboys happened to play that one well. It happens.
I mean, he was pressured. I looked back. It did not look like he was hit. I thought initially when I saw it, he was hit, but his arm was not hit. So he got a free release on that. It was just obviously not on the same page as Neighbors under the circumstances. And just real quick before we go to the next caller, I just brought up the alignment for that play, where he hits Ferguson. You had two receivers out wide to the right and then to the left. So, I mean, Dak still had Tolbert, Lamb, and Pickens lined up on the play when he threw to Ferguson over the middle.
And by the way,
14 seconds to go in the fourth.
The first line of defense at the snap is lined up at the 43-yard line. If they just stay there and don't back up another 10 yards at the snap, you're in perfect position. You're in good shape. The problem is that at the snap, they back up an additional 10 yards after
43
to throw.
To now all of a sudden in opposing territory.
Correct, which is exactly what happened.
And now all of a sudden you move the line of demarcation and you give Dallas more breathing room.
I want to know what Wilson's apology is. Can we go to Wilson next?
You want to go to Wilson next?
I want to know what his apology is, because I don't remember Wilson having to apologize for anything.
Fair enough. Well, maybe apologize to every single viewer and listener. That's where I would put it. But hey, if you want to roll out the red carpet for that, I'm all for it.
Wilson, what's up?
What's happening?
No, Johnny, hey, what's up, Lance? No, Johnny, I think you and Tiki got mad at me the other day when I called on Sunday. Did you get mad at me or was it just me?
Honestly, Wilson, honestly, I don't even remember exactly what your point was. So, no, I wasn't particularly mad at you. Maybe Tiki was. I don't know.
Johnny, let me ask you something, because I think we have you know me for a while now.
Sadly.
If I'm going to call you, right?
Yeah.
If I call the show, right, and I tell you what you want to hear, what fun is that?
Now, Wilson, we want you to call with your honest opinion.
Right.
Just come with the facts to back it up, and we'll have some back and forth fun.
Okay.
Now, make your point. It's all good.
So, no, Lance, listen. So I asked Johnny and Tiki the other day. I said, Tiki, to me, the Giants are a horrendously coached team. I think he took a little offense to it because I don't want to hear any more excuses. Now, what bothered me a little by what Tiki said was, well, now the new players got to mash in. Last week was the offensive line, defensive line. Now today it was the new players. But I just want to ask you guys something, because it seems like I feel like I can't. Every time I say something negative, I can't. Like I brought up the record for the past 2 years, and Tiki, and I don't know if you took a little offense at me saying that, Johnny, but I don't understand something, man.
It's a record.
We have, according to a lot of people, a good head coach, a good general manager, and good players. Yeah, I don't want to bring it up, but we have won 9 games and lost like 27 games.
Wilson, it's fair.
Something's got to give, Johnny.
No, Wilson, look.
Because I don't. Go ahead.
No, Wilson.
Let me say this.
Yeah, go ahead. Finish up real quick.
No, I'm saying because. To me, my season's over and my Sundays are over. Whether Giant fans want to believe otherwise, it's up to them. Everybody has their own opinion.
And that's fine. Absolutely.
But Johnny, listen, I don't know. A lot of people probably feel that this. I mean, when it's enough, we can't even win a game that is right there for us. It's a horrendous feeling as Giant fans, because you know what, Johnny? I was watching the game. You know how horrible it is to watch a game and know something's bad's going to happen?
Wilson, I've watched the same team you have for the past 10 years. Don't worry, I get it. Appreciate the call, man.
Yeah,
sorry, we're at the end of the show here. I apologize.
And there's a lot of heartbreak. I mean, look at the Colts and the Broncos. I know Giants fans don't want to hear it. Indy misses a field goal, and then they get to redo it because of the leverage over the long snapper. It happens across the league. I understand maybe the track record's not necessarily what the Giants has been, but you suffer heartbreak in close games more often than not. That's what happens.
You should be disappointed over the record over the last 2 years. Hasn't been good. I get it. I'm not gonna get me upset, Wilson. You're stating a fact. I understand that, and everyone's gonna have their different opinion on it. That's fine. You have your opinion. That's fine. Call up, give us your opinion. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
So do we have time?
Yeah, squeeze it in.
Okay, because I know we got a bit of a hard out,
Yep.
but we'll try to squeeze it here. James in Harrisburg. James, we're up against the clock. What do you got for us?
If I get my phone call, you can take them yourself.
Sounds good.
I'm on. Am I on?
Yeah, you are on, James. Yep. What's happening? What's on your mind?
Bad coaching, bad clock management. That's pretty much it.
What was wrong with the clock management, James?
The timeouts when the defense is tired. We ain't had no timeouts.
When did you?
Why none of our players do the get up slow, my foot, you know the fake injury to slow the game down.
Why our coaching is the coaching.
No, but James.
The coaching.
No, but James, I get what you're saying, but when did you want to do that? The Giants had possession for 4 or 5 plays before that final Dallas drive. The defense should not have still been winded.
What do you mean? When did we want to do what? Call a timeout?
Yeah, call a timeout.
Fake a timeout. Yes. Fake
Either
an injury,
one. Take
like
your
these
pick.
other teams do.
Yeah, James. Either way, take your pick. When did you want to do that?
Oh, it don't matter. Like, slow it down. Our defense is tired, super tired, and then everybody wants to fire people. That's not going to help. Firing people is not going to help. It's just not going to help.
All right, James.
I don't understand the point about when you should have intentionally faked an injury is essentially what you're saying. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. That was the point that was being made. It makes no sense. I mean, before we wrap up here, I'm looking at Cowboys had an 11-play, 71-yard drive that took 1:52 off the clock. That put them up 34-30. Then the Giants had the long touchdown pass to Neighbors. And then there's 25 seconds left in the game, and it was a 4-play, 21-yard drive. And Dallas has still multiple timeouts left. So if you're focusing on the fourth quarter and you're claiming that they were tired, I don't think it's justified that they were tired. And B, Dallas has the ability to stop the clock anyway. So what leverage are you using? In terms of overtime, Dallas ran a 6-play, 23-yard drive. They went 3 and out on their second possession. How tired is the defense in overtime under these circumstances? I think that's where frustration gets in the way of reality and facts of the scenario. So I don't understand when players should have been doing that and timeouts were desperately needed to all of a sudden slow things down. Giants knew there was 9 seconds left in the game. Well, 14 is when the clock stopped, of course, prior to that play to Ferguson. And it wasn't as if Dallas was going hurry up every single play. So I think that's more of a frustration take as opposed to reality and what led to the outcome of the game. All right, that is going to wrap things up for us here on Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. A reminder that it is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants, as we are broadcasting from the Giants podcast studio presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. The archive of the show, our entire podcast network, available on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcast. For John Schmeelk, I'm Lance Medow. Signing off here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Stay locked to Giants.com for all the latest. Have a good one.